the people who are in control to have a wider vision of the world. If you're living in LA or on the West Coast, you can't not see Asian people. There's Asian people all over the place. So for them to not put Asian people in film is strange to me. You know what I mean? Especially like 30 years on from. I mean, we really haven't changed much from the Long Duck Dong 16 Candles era, really, honestly. Yes, there's people like Masaoka and those guys in Heroes, but they're really playing a variation of that character that white America thinks is really cute and funny. And I don't find it cute and funny because it's too old. It's a one-liner that's gone on way too long. And there's no blaming on those people at all, but I'm just saying that American culture, unfortunately, is still stuck in the 70s and 80s. And Asians have come a long way in society in general in America, and if you go to any university, it's more than 50% Asian. So for them to not put Asians in films and not try to put Asians in lead roles is kind of a strange thing. But it's not up to me at all. I might be advocating it, but I don't really have any control in that whatsoever. So it really is up to the people in control and power. I think it's changed a lot in the past few years. I remember going to I think it was the Rush Hour 2 premiere, and talking to a producer, and he's like, "Oh, really? You're from Hong Kong?" He was so excited because Hong Kong and Hong Kong film were really kind of cool at that moment, right? And then he goes, "How come you don't have an accent?" And I told him that I was from Berkeley. And he goes, "Oh." Like immediately I wasn't as interesting anymore, and he walked away. But if I was from Hong Kong and with a funny accent, maybe I'd be cuter to him and more something that he can market, right? That was then. And then now, like, I'm in LA, I've had a couple meetings with some producers. The whole climate has changed a lot because I think people realize the China market is huge. There's a potential audience of 1 billion people there, and how do they, it's really economically driven, how do they get a piece of that? And maybe getting a piece of that is putting a star like me in an American movie, and therefore introducing that film to a whole new audience in China. So those ideas now are getting into people's heads, and I think that's what's changing things. So unfortunately, it's going to be an economic drive that gets people, or white America, to accept Asians more, because they're really trying to get a piece of the China market. But I'm fine with that too. It's not anything. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's going to be an economic movement more than a socio-political movement. I just think it just needs to be a natural process, because championing it means then maybe there might be like, okay, let's make this Asian story and we'll hire a white writer to write a story about Asian people. That doesn't work either because they're not from that culture. So I'd rather just see it more happen naturally in that, okay, we've got this movie with like 4 guys in it or whatever. One of them could be an Asian character, an Asian male, things like that. But I don't think it necessarily has to be conscious. Just choose the right guy for the role and be open to who it could be. It doesn't have to be a Chinese guy or a Korean guy. It could be a black guy or whatever. But the point is, it's a double-edged sword for me, because I understand creative development, right? And if the actor is not right for the role, then you can't force him in the role, whether he's, you want to champion Asians in film or not. And Asians, unfortunately, don't have the luxury of, like, African Americans, like what Spike Lee did for the African Americans, and by making black film and building on this black American culture. Asian Americans are so separated, you know what I mean? The Koreans don't like the Chinese don't like the Japanese, and we need to get over that. We need to understand that we're all Americans, that we're all Asian Americans, and that we can get along and support each other before you can get to that stage like Spike Lee had, because African Americans have been here for so many generations that they don't even know what parts of Africa they're from, so therefore they are just African American, and therefore they're cohesive as a whole, right? Asian Americans are not like that because we're relatively new immigrants. So we still tend to stick with our tribes, you know what I mean? And there needs to be a greater unity before that can happen. So yeah, it's a complicated issue. Yeah, I think it's a good start. What's been happening and what these guys have been doing, like Sung Kang and all of them, it's a good start because they're getting their foot in the door. They're doing a good job on the roles they get. Now it's just about to be careful of what kind of roles they decide to take on, and not to do the stereotype, Oriental dangerous girl that knows kung fu and knives come out of her butt. You know what I mean? Like that's just like it's played out to me as an Asian American, or the yakuza guy, or the triad leader. All that stuff that Americans tend to over romanticize about our culture. So So it's a slow, gradual change, and I think these guys are the pioneers, and they're doing it right now. So my hat's off to them. I've never really aspired to be a role model for anybody because I don't necessarily think I have those qualities per se. I think I'm just doing what I like to do, and if people like that, then that's cool. I'm not trying to sell the brand or try to be a role model for kids growing up. But that said, I would not mind being an inspiration to kids seeing me on the silver screen and getting them to get into acting or whatever. If it's a kung fu movie, go learn kung fu or whatever. Those kind of things are great because I was influenced by movies. I was influenced by a whole bunch of different actors. But I don't really have a kind of set idea of what a role model should be because I don't really know what that is. Yeah, I like all those guys. Russell Peters, they're all awesome. I think Russell Peters is really amazing with his crazy accents. His Chinese accent is like spot on. I assume he has a lot of Chinese friends, but yeah, those guys are great. Ken Jeong, Dr. Ken, he's awesome. He's coming into his own right now, and I'm totally supportive of that. I thought it was really interesting because it showed a real long history of Asian Americans in film business, but it's like one person every 20 or 30 years that they talk about there, and the overall theme still is that their image was controlled by white America, so how the roles that they got to play and the roles they got to be were more like that, with the exception of maybe Bruce Lee because he did all his stuff on his own. He directed his own stuff and did it on his own, so he was really expressing himself as an individual. And he has, though. I think he has in some ways, in that by putting Sung and putting Jason in Fast and Furious, or putting Roger Fan in Fast and Furious, is his attempt at doing that. I think he's helping out his bros, and these are guys that helped him get his start in Better Luck Tomorrow. And I think it's more a loyalty issue than an Asian American issue. Because I don't necessarily think we need to do that. I think because at a certain point, it's kind of annoying. I mean, like if it's always those Chinese actors. I don't want it to be that way. I want people to be known as individuals, as good actors, not good Chinese actors, right? I remember when I was in college, I attended this Asian American talk on Asian American artists, and I raised this question that like everyone was pissed off at me, but I was like, I'm not wrong about this, which is the curator was talking about doing more Asian American art exhibitions and showings and stuff like that. And I raised a question which was like, well, I think a lot of artists would rather be known as good artists rather than good Chinese American artists or good Japanese American artists, and to be clumped into a group of Asian Americans all the time, that's limiting. I mean, you want to be the best that you can be. You don't want to be the best Asian American you can be, what I mean? Or even, I like Denzel Washington. He never was like, I'm going to be the best black actor in the world. No, he's going to be the best actor in the world, and he did that, And so I totally buy into that kind of thinking, which is, don't give yourself a little trigger like that. Maybe that can help you get it going, but you can't think in those such small terms like that. Well, I think the advantages of using people like that, as opposed to like Asian Americans that are just starting out here, is that they have tons of experience working on tons of different kinds of films in Asia, and they have an advantage because they speak English with no accent. They're Asian Americans, but they just happen to be working in Asia, so they have a lot more experience than most Asian American actors working here probably do. So that's really the major advantage, and then each individual is different. They have their different qualities. No, I have no idea. I'm not really tied into the Asian American acting community here because I've been, I'm always over in Asia, so I've never really got a sense of what's going on. But that said, like Jason Tobin was really active in bringing his acting coach out to Hong Kong. So I've done a couple of the workshops with them. So I know that people here are constantly owning their craft because if you're not working, what else are you going to do? You know what I mean? So it's time, you got to work on your craft, and it's something you got to keep oiling. You got to oil that machine all the time, because if you just stop working for like half a year and try to jump back into it, I've done that before, you're rusty, And so you just keep doing that and keep improving. And there's no, acting is like art or any other kind of creative field, which is you're always getting better. You've never come to your being at your best and that's it. You're gonna get better and better and better and better the more you work at it. And it's just about the time. I mean, if you read like Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. He talks about the 10,000 hour rule, right? If you work 10,000 hours, then you're going to be good at it. So just keep practicing, keep working on the craft, whether you're working or not. Sitting around complaining about not getting work doesn't do you any good, right? You got to buckle down and concentrate on the work and and then actually that really weeds out who's in it to be a good actor, who wants to be an actor, and who just wants to be a star. You know, that's one of the major things I have a problem with. People are like, how do I get into the business? And I always ask them the first question, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a movie star or do you want to be an actor? You tell me what you want to be. If you want to be a movie star and that's all you're thinking about, I'm telling you, don't even try, because it's a waste of your time. It's a horrible business to try to be in, and if you're going to be worried about maintaining your star status all the time, it's painful. You know, just if you can focus on your work and focus on your craft, and you have something really tangible like that to measure your life by, then that's fine. You know, and just keep doing it and keep trying to get better. I don't think there's any role I wouldn't do. It's just how it's written. You know, if it's a one-dimensional triad role, that's a very stereotype, you know, American version of that, then yeah, sure, I'm not going to do that. But there's really great gangster roles, like, you know, the ones that John Woo's done in his films, you know. So it really depends on whose hands it's in. You know, there's no way you can say I can't do this kind of role, whatever. You know, maybe some people are like that, but I'm not really like that at all.
Sure.
But I think they don't look at me as Asian American, honestly. A lot of the times, you know, and people like you do, you know, necessarily, that you know my background and stuff, but I think a lot of them don't necessarily, because I've done no American work at all, you know, it's all been Chinese work. Yeah, I mean, I'd be totally honored to do something like that and to be involved in something like that. It's just, I don't think I'm on the radar, you know.
Every day, the same. Wake up, starts all over. Would things be different? A better day? Ever? Here to there, everywhere and back.